Hey everyone, and welcome to today's YouTube video. In this video today, I'm going to be going through some of the common pitfalls that I see in aspiring entrepreneurs, people who want to make a name for themselves outside of their 9 to 5, build a life of purpose, fulfillment, enjoyment, and actually live a life on their terms instead of working their butt off to build someone else's dream. So in today's video, we're going to go deep into the common pitfalls I see, the challenges, and why ultimately having an idea that is grounded in who you are and bringing this to life is the superpower to escaping your 9 to 5 and turning your dream into an absolute reality. So if you're new here, my name is Elliot. I'm an online coach helping 9 to 5ers get into business and create the time, the systems in place, and the well-being aspects to actually sustain building a business effortlessly around the 9 to 5. So let's get into it. So the first things first, a lot of people think they actually want to get into business. They think that they actually need to have someone else's idea. They think that they actually see these people on social media having success in their business. Maybe they're an online coach, maybe they're an Amazon FBA, maybe it's some gambling business, things that you might see, get rich quick schemes I call them. And they think, oh, I could do that, or maybe I could actually build a business of my own. And whilst that's a very useful thought, sometimes it's grounded in want and grounded from a place of actual, non-reality, in the sense that it's not true and it's not aligned to who they are. And when something is misaligned, this is when you can kind of fall into a trap of just start when the time's right, or work's a little bit too busy right now, or maybe that I'll do it next year. And sentences like this can come up, and there's no actual true driver to wanting to turn an idea into reality and actually take progress steps towards getting out your 9 to 5. So I think it's super easy to fall into this trap, and I know for certain when I was starting out and I was looking around shopping and thinking, I know this 9 to 5 doesn't really suit me right now, and I know that I'm capable of doing more and capable of having a life of much more enjoyment and freedom than the life that I'm living right now. And with the world that we live in with social media and the exposure that we have online to success, it's easy to think that it's easy to build, if that makes sense. So it's easy to see these people smashing it in businesses and lots of different, some of those markets are going to be aligned with you, some of them aren't going to be aligned with you, and it can be easy just to take one of those ideas and think, fuck it, I'll just run with that idea. And before you know it, this is when you can fall into inconsistencies, where you have weeks where you're smashing it, you're hot on it, and work just flows effortlessly. And then there's lots of other weeks where you don't do anything at all, you stay stagnant, and there's eventually that sort of like energy of the idea just fizzles out. And I genuinely believe that the core driver of this is not that you don't have the motivation, it's not that you don't have the discipline, or you're not good enough, or you haven't got the skills. It simply comes down to this. It comes down to the fact that that idea itself is not true to who you are. It's not aligned with the life you want to build, and it's not aligned with your skills, passions, and purpose. And if these three things are missing, this is the biggest common pitfall that I see. And I actually fell into this myself. So before having this iteration of a business, I tried to run it as something totally different. I then changed it into a fitness business. And I was so out of alignment with the business I was trying to build that ultimately my input slowed down, the quality of inputs fizzled, and eventually, obviously, I actually felt like I almost gave up. And there was a point like 18 months ago where I definitely considered, like, okay, is this for me? Should I just stay in my 9 to 5 and go down the traditional route of just climbing that sort of career ladder, and maybe business isn't for me? And most of you who are probably watching this, who are even thinking about starting a business, have probably thought about what type of business you're gonna build. Maybe you've tried some stuff, maybe you've actually got something written on paper, a mind map, you've spoken to friends about it. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could build X? Oh, I had this really cool business idea before, So maybe you fell into these sort of thoughts and these feelings and said these words yourself. I have in the past, certainly. The truth is that if this idea isn't aligned to you, it's not aligned to your values, it's not aligned to the ultimate life vision that you want to build, you're literally going to fizzle out very, very quickly. So alignment is super, super key when it comes to having this idea and taking it into reality. In terms of actually creating that idea, it's something that I help my clients with day in, day out, and actually get them unstuck and actually get them very, very clear on building this business of their actual dreams. But not only building the business, but business for what? And I think that's so important to identify who this business is for, what the life it is it can build, and then building everything else from there. And something that I've learned over the last, quite recently actually, probably between 6 and 12 months, is when you don't have vision, when you don't have a place, when you don't start from a place of vision and identity and your values, your skills, your passions, your purpose, it's so easy to get lost in that sort of like sea of information, overconsumption. Maybe you jump on YouTube, you look at some self-help or some business type podcasts, Stephen Bartlett, etc., Simon Scribb, you name it, you've probably watched it. And then you jump over there, you read some business book, you're taking information from all angles, but you're just left kind of just being a circle entrepreneur, and you're just going around in circles with this multiple ideas, multiple different information with no real end goal. And that's a problem, and maybe you get stuck in that loop for 6 months, a year, 2 years, and before you know it, you kind of, a few years down the line, and you're pretty much in exactly the same space that you started. So it's really interesting when you get stuck in these loops, and I think in today's world that we live in, it's probably even easier to get stuck in these loops simply because we have access to so much information. And I know when I was starting my journey, I was looking to build and consume information from everywhere. And yes, of course, it was helpful. Some of it was, and from a personal development standpoint, it was really helpful. However, when it comes to refining your idea and bringing that to life, without the clarity of your vision, without the clarity of why you're doing it and who's it for and what the life it's going to bring for you, it's actually quite detrimental to progress, and it can really, really slow you down. So something that I think is a key takeaway from this message is the fact that once you have figured out your idea and you've built it around your values, your purpose and fulfillment, and why it's important to you, it really streamlines the quality of your inputs and what you can actually start to do, your perception of time, your energy towards the idea, because you're actually being magnetic and resonating with it and being pulled rather than pushed away from the idea. And as a result, it's much more likely that you can bring this idea to life instead of sitting there and again stuck in that overconsumption loop. Now, I speak to a lot of people who are actually wanting to get into this business, get into an online world, take control of their life and actually start building something for themselves. And it's really, really interesting because a lot of them actually think the problem isn't the idea itself. A lot of them actually think that the idea is sound and they're happy with it, but they think the motivation or discipline or their time is the real issue. And it's really interesting because when you actually dive deeper and you understand the idea, they might think the idea is solid, but actually it's not laid in foundations of reality and foundations of who they are and what they want to build to market. So I think this is really crucial, that this first step you need to take, or the first thing that you need to understand, is that everything is downstream from the idea. So got the idea and everything else filters below that. So if you try and start at the bottom, so maybe you're starting with inputs, but your idea isn't clear, that's when things can get messy. You can start going around in circles. You start something, you stop some. Maybe one week you're on it, doing lots of different tasks. But what actually matters in terms of business progress, not always financial, but actually a feeling of momentum, it definitely is a lot slower when you start like that. And I felt like myself when I first started working with a previous mentor, I was building something that was not fully aligned to me. And I started at the input level when my idea and actual offer and business that I wanted to create wasn't clear. And I spent months going around in circles, and honestly, I got pretty much nowhere. It wasn't until I actually looked inward and realized that I need to understand the idea that I want to build and bring this to life. And that's when things filtered downstream, and that's when I started to see results in my idea. So how do you kind of actually clarify the idea that you want? So inside the Limitless Idea Builder, we actually start with you. And I think that's a mistake people make ultimately, first and foremost, to highlight is, as I said, people look outwards for ideas, look at other people who are succeeding, They look at other social media accounts and think, oh, that'll be cool, I could do that. But if it's not aligned to you, it's not aligned to who you are, and it doesn't light you up inside and put fire in your belly, it's really easy for things just to spiral out of control ultimately. So this is the first step, is to actually understand what you want. What is the life that you want to build? Why is that important to you? And what will it allow you to have? So this might be a freedom to travel, freedom of income, freedom of time. It might be a sense of fulfillment, purpose, enjoyment, things like this. But getting super crystal clear to the point where you can actually articulate this in a paragraph or a few sentences and make it so clear that it's almost impossible not to go and do that thing. And then from an energetic standpoint, when you are crystal clear on this and why it's important to you, then you can start bringing that to life. In terms of ideas, now we live in a world where you can literally make money out of so many different things. The funny thing is the idea itself hasn't got to be perfect. You've actually just got to get into motion. And this is the beauty of starting with you and starting from a place of values and purpose and everything I've just mentioned, is that once you've done that, that's when you can start to test the waters and bring ideas to life. Now, a lot of people that we're speaking to in 9 to 5s, they have some idea of what they want, so which is helpful. But even if those just like the idea of building business, definitely looking inwards around what you value and what you find interesting and where your skills align to is a really good place to start when bringing this to life. Now, the second facet, once you've got the idea, is how the hell do you create the time to make it a reality whilst you've got life to run, you've got health to look after, maybe you've got a girlfriend, boyfriend, kids, etc. So where do you find the time to do? Now, I think that people's perception of time really comes down to the fact that they're not clear on two things. They're not clear on the idea itself, and then they're not clear on the available time in their calendar. And the first step to breaking free of this is getting aware of both of those things. So we spoke about the first part, getting aware of the idea, getting aware of why it's important to you. The second part is getting aware of the available time per week. So this isn't about productivity hacks, this isn't about habit trackers or forcing yourself to do shit. As I said, when you've got the ideas right, it should be magnetic, it should pull you towards the idea and literally put you into motion, and it should be a feeling deep down that you need to do this because this is the life that you want to build. And this then positively skews your perception of the available time that you have. So as I said, going back to when life was busier, the idea wasn't so clear for me. I constantly felt out of touch with the time. I just struggled even to put 2 or 3 content pieces out per week. It was a struggle to show up every week to even manage to do that. And it wasn't until these 2 things were locked in, the idea and the time on my calendar. So once we're clear on those things, it's simply a matter of going into your calendar, putting your constraints in. So it could be that you put in your 9 to 5, family commitments, and etc. And then blocking out, 20 minutes, half an hour across the week. And these small bursts and chunks of time, when combined with the clarity of what you're trying to build and where you're trying to go, become superpowers for making it a reality. And this is something that I think a lot of people overlook. They might have the idea, they might have some sort of concept of what they want to build, but then they're really struggling to fit it in around their 9 to 5 and ultimately their life as well. And I think both of those issues stem because of a clarity problem instead of it being an actual system that actually breathes and enables you to get results in your life. So think about that. Think about your week. Think about where your time's being spent and seeing if that's aligned with the actual life you want to build. So often that we're actually unconscious of the amount of time we're wasting. And sometimes it's just mindset traits. I was literally speaking to a client a few days ago and they were saying, yeah, my normal mentality is that when the clock strikes 4, I'm switch off mode. I'm then into sort of chill out mode. And the kind of mindset shift you need to be thinking about once your idea is more clear is that, okay, my 9 to 5's ended, now it's time to switch and get focused on building my own version of future. And that's kind of the basis of it, is getting clear on your idea, clear on your time, and then it's just a simple matter of showing up, which I know you're definitely not going to struggle with because, as we said at the start, you're not somebody who's going to be struggling for motivation, you're not going to be struggling for discipline. It's simply just a clarity and idea problem. But yeah, that's sort of what's been on my brain recently. It's stuff that I've been seeing in the market, it's stuff that I've been seeing with clients myself. And yeah, it's super, super easy to fix once you kind of go deep internally with what you want to build and why it's important to you. And yeah, that's kind of it really. So just a short video today. I hope that's really been useful. The key message here really is going deep internally around what you want to build, why it's important to you, and then building out this vision of your future reality. And I think it all starts from clarity, and clarity is a bit of a buzzword, and it's something that's not very sort of clear, ironically. However, when you distill it down in this way and you break it down and give these practical steps, your brain literally thrives off clarity. And I always say to myself and to my clients, like, clarity is a thief of procrastination. Once you're clear on the idea, you're clear on your time, your inputs and your non-negotiables become so much clearer, and it's literally just a matter of showing up, which 9 times out of 10 isn't a problem for people. So I hope that's useful. If you want some help with this is exactly what I help with inside my program. Check out my Instagram, check out some other YouTube videos, and feel free to hit that subscribe button.